What's up, everyone? Welcome to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Susie Slaughter.
You got Jaime and Fuego here, and we are stoked yet slightly sad to be at the very end of our coverage of the fall showcase for the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival. I think the third one might possibly have been my favorite of all three, and our man Cecil here is going to give us a rundown of this last film. What
Absolutely,
we got, man?
You guys. For day 3 of the fall showcase here, we got to see the movie called Bone Tomahawk.
Good evening. In civilized towns, you look a man direct in the face when you talk to him.
This isn't comfortable.
Well, it's not supposed to be.
There's a situation. Serious.
Mrs. O'Dwyer was abducted.
She is my everything, and those savages have got her. God knows what they're doing to her, and every second that we delay.
You know who did this? They don't have a name. How many of them do you think there are?
It won't matter. You have no chance against any number of them.
I'm coming with you.
No, I need you here.
And this is what the backup's for, to help an emergency, not stay back. I'm coming.
We're making a 5-day journey in 3 days, riding along and sleeping the bare minimum.
I don't know what's west of here. No cattle trail or anything else goes in that direction.
If our horses die before we get there, or we go into hostile territory, weak and foggy with exhaustion, we won't rescue anybody.
Now, I had never actually heard of this one, so it was super interesting. What this one is about is it's a Western that basically you start off with a really cool cameo, I should say. I won't say by who, but all you horror fans, especially those that watch the horror show, are gonna dig the hell out of it. But basically you go to a Western town where Kurt Russell is the sheriff, naturally, and there is a drifter that flies into town, doesn't actually fly, but rolls into town and is drinking real late, and Kurt Russell's sort of called out by his assistant deputy, who was a great character, which we'll get into in a minute, but he says that this drifter looks suspicious, so Kurt Russell goes to the local watering hole, you could say, and confronts him, and he's very cagey, and he tries to make a run for it, and Kurt Russell shoots him in the leg. And then he basically calls upon a man that just happens to be drinking there, played by Matthew Fox. And if any of you have ever watched Lost, then you know who Matthew Fox is. He was the main character, Jack.
Rocking that stash.
Yep, absolutely. Rocking a cool, Western mustache. And he was the only one wearing white through basically the whole thing. I thought that was a nice little touch as well.
Nice for lots of blood to get on.
Considering the reveal for his character as well, he's the only one wearing white. It's a nice little juxtaposition. But,
totally.
And basically, the sheriff then calls upon the wife of our other main character, played by Patrick Wilson, who you guys will know if you watch The Conjuring or the Insidious movie, Insidious 1 and 2, I should say. He played the father in, and then one of the ghost experts in The Conjuring.
Oh yeah.
So
great actor.
Yeah, exactly, tremendous. And basically, what happens is his wife is sort of a surgeon in training or a medical professional of some kind, and she goes to try and patch up the leg of the drifter. And that's sort of where they leave off. The sheriff goes off to bed and is left with his main deputy, not the assistant deputy. And Patrick Wilson, who is laid up with an injured leg, just sort of lets her go, loans her out to go perform her medical duties. And we cut to the next morning, and
some stuff's gone down.
Exactly. There's someone that's sort of in pieces, and then there's also
Sort of in pieces.
Sort of in pieces, yeah. And then there's a distinct lack of people at the jail cell. So both the wife, the drifter, and the main deputy have disappeared. So Kurt Russell then has to mount up a rescue effort with his assistant deputy and Patrick Wilson, and Matthew Fox's character also decides to tag along to go and try and rescue them.
Yep.
And the rest of the movie is basically them on their trek to go and save these people, and what they encounter is what you could consider extremely not friendly, I would say.
No, we're talking beyond like natives, my friend. We're talking something much scarier. So
and it's
don't
funny,
spoil it.
Yeah, there's actually the person they consult as to where to track them down is an Indian that's now living in the town, and he's even like, no, this isn't Indians. This is way worse than
Yeah,
Indians.
exactly.
So I'm not going to say too much more because it'll spoil it, but
They have an ancient name for them. that
Exactly.
We'll just leave it at that.
exactly. Suffice it to say, it was a sort of an arduous journey, and they go to try and do what they need to do. So
Yeah.
let's get into it, guys. The meat of this review. Let's start off with the good or the
meat.
bueno. The meat.
Yeah.
So let's start off. Jaime,
I
what
would
was
love
the
to-
first thing that you liked about this movie?
I would love to lead it off because you can't help but compare this to another movie that dealt with some serious themes. We'll just say it. There's people that get eaten in this movie.
Yes.
Okay. And you can't help but compare this to another film about people being eaten that came out recently.
Very recently.
The Green Inferno. And whereas that film just did not really have characters I felt like real people or identified as much with, the acting and the cast in this film was tremendous. It wasn't a large ensemble, but there was such tremendous chemistry between them. We don't know the name of the assistant deputy,
Right,
I
the
should say.
assistant to the deputy.
But his dialogue and banter throughout really drove the pace forward for a movie that might feel slow to some, but he was trying to fill the time, and he felt he filled it wonderfully, in my opinion.
Yeah, he filled it not only for his compatriots in the film, but for the audience as well. So
Yeah.
that's probably a good place to lead Susie into her good for the movie.
Yeah.
He was my favorite. No, as Jaime was saying, he definitely carried the story well. Him being there, I thought was absolutely fantastic. And as Cecil was saying, in the very beginning of the movie, one of my most favorite people on the planet. Had no idea he was in it, but you're gonna have to watch it.
None
to
of
find
us
out.
did.
Yes, no, none of us did. So you're
Yeah.
gonna have to watch it to find out who it was. And it was already, as soon as I saw him, I was like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
this is gonna be
Yeah.
a
She
winner.
knew she'd like it as soon as he rolled on the screen.
Yes,
So.
Yeah.
it was
So-
definitely foreshadowing of the awesomeness. Everybody worked so well. The chemistry was great.
Yeah,
and
Fox, Russell, and Wilson, all three of those guys, I mean, all great actors in their own right, but I felt like they all elevated each other's game by playing off one another the way that they did.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
something else I love. Also the practical effects. Oh,
Yeah.
it was perfect.
Yeah.
Literally perfect, and there was so
Yeah,
many
no, you're not going to
instances-
find any CG in this one.
No, but there's so many instances where I watched Cecil and Jaime grab themselves.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if you see the movie,
You'll
you'll
know
understand
what.
why. And I'm sitting there
Yeah.
like,
She was literally having more fun watching us at those parts than watching those parts.
it was
She was in
fantastic.
fact like glancing back and forth. And
It was great.
That's a good segue into my bueno for this one. What I liked about this one is the gore, and there may not have been a huge, overwhelming amount of it, especially
But it was
considering the
perfect.
runtime. But when it showed up, it was not only really effective, but it was really satisfying at
Yeah.
times as well.
Big time.
Like there was a point at which one of them that Susie's talking about. I don't do this very often, but when a movie makes me go, like I literally have to put my hands over my mouth, then it's super effective.
great.
And this one part was better than the entirety of the Green Inferno, in my
Totally.
opinion.
Yeah, because it just hits you where, I mean,
It hits you,
Yeah.
where it hurts.
the convention
Oh, yeah.
guy who was seated right beside me, he's like looking at my reactions because I'm sure he'd probably seen this before.
I caught my own breath. I was just like, like it was just really tough to see. And then there was another couple of things that happened that you're just like, and then again, we watch a lot of horror movies. You guys
Yeah.
know this watching our show.
It takes a lot to get a solid reaction out of
Exactly,
us.
and
We're a
this
little
one,
desensitized.
this one definitely had it. And that's the other thing I want to say that was the good about this for me is that I went into it knowing literally nothing about it except that it dealt with people eaters and Western.
Yeah.
And that was literally it. So
Yeah.
if you guys can go into it the same way, I highly recommend doing so. It was a little long in the midsection, so let's
Which
get
is
into
actually one of the malos that I was
Exactly.
going to
Go
mention.
ahead, Jaime.
Yeah, I honestly thought it was perfectly paced, but it may be slow for some, and
Right.
that's the thing. I mean, it felt like a Western to me,
Yep.
but those are often sprawling, and their
Westerns
journey.
take their time.
They do, and this one really did. There wasn't a lot of music or score or anything. It was
No.
mostly just, very, very cinematic,
Yeah.
in the way that it looked. But the film may be too slow for some people,
Right.
which is that. But it is very satisfying.
Everything that was shown made sense.
It did.
Yeah,
If
it
that
had its
makes
place.
sense. Yes,
it was all
everything had
going
its
towards
place.
developing the story.
Right.
It was, and it made that payoff just really hit that much harder once it finally came because you connected with the characters, you cared about them, and since it took its time, it really just was that much more effective because of it.
And also, as Jaime mentioned, there wasn't a lot of scoring going on. Which, if a movie can carry itself without suspenseful music, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
See, even for the Malo, we're still coming back to
Yeah.
the bueno,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is what
that's
happens
always a good sign.
with good films. It's where you're kind of struggling to find a lot that's bad about it. And there's another cannibal movie I think not a lot of people have seen called Ravenous, and
That's a great one.
this film is up there with that one. Maybe not as much humor, or at least the same variety of humor.
Right.
But I mean, it's up there in that pantheon for me as far as period piece, kind of West. People consuming one another.
Yeah,
So.
yep, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I think that, that's as much bad as we can give this one. So let's move into the ugly, or the feo, as Jaime would like to put it. Jaime, what's your ugly on this one?
The Feo, we got there, and we've kind of implied as to what some of it would be. The brutality that eventually comes is satisfying, but it's nauseating, and it just really, whereas the Green Inferno felt silly, this one it disturbed when it needed to. It really did, and it wasn't just these goofy cartoon-like characters like you had in the Green Inferno, and I even feel bad mentioning that movie so much, but I think another Feo is that film is probably, with all the hoopla surrounding it, going to end up with more press and more attention than this small little Western by a first-time director will.
This is going to be a diamond in the rough that people are going to have to stumble across, unfortunately. I think.
Panning for gold, but you got to look for it. You got to stick with it, man, because it's there in this movie. It may be ugly once you finally find that gold, but so worth it.
Yeah. Now, what was the ugly for you in this one?
I
Susie?
have nothing.
Really?
I literally cannot think of one thing.
Okay. Fair
Again,
enough.
I might be a
the
little.
ugliness of the men in the audience, their faces, the expressions during certain
That was
scenes.
gold. That was pure gold.
That was another bueno for Susie.
Seriously, the two you just go. I don't remember what you said, but suddenly that's not right. And so you're just no. It was.
Anything Feo for you?
Fair
man?
enough. You know what? I
Anything
do
ugly?
have a fail, but it's really just because it's not a bad about the movie. It was something that was effective in the movie, and that was all the things that they did with Patrick Wilson's bum leg. Like all the times that he stumbled and you heard the snaps, and there was a setting of his leg at one point that
You
was
felt
just
the
like,
ugly pain of his journey, man. You
exactly.
really did.
It was, again, the ugly is something that was super effective in its ugliness. So,
ugly in a good film is effective and really drives that point across, and ugly in a bad movie just sticks out like a sore thumb, right?
Exactly. So again, when we can sit down or stand up, as it were, and do a review
At our Harkins
at
Theater
our
here.
lovely Harkins Scottsdale Theater, when all of the bad and the fail or the ugly that we can come up with still come around to being good, it's a movie you guys got to go catch.
It definitely ended on a great note.
Yeah. This fall showcase was definitely it was a solid final night.
And it was awesome to see them just get such a nice assortment of films for this.
Definitely an assortment.
Shout out once again to Montiazzi for giving us the press opportunity to actually come and cover this first fall showcase.
Thanks, Benny.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than seeing two great horror movies and one so-so horror movie.
But still very different than the other two.
There's no better way to see them than free, though.
Yeah.
So, as press people, it was definitely worth our time. But even if you guys got to go seek it out, if it's on VOD, if they make it into the theater, definitely check out all of them. But especially Bone Tomahawk, which the namesake of the movie was really cool because they were essentially cow skulls that were repurposed into tomahawks. Yep. So it was a really cool
ingenuity, guys.
I know what I want for Christmas.
Fair enough. Step away. All right.
So yeah, we also want to, in closing, just extend that gracias once more, but also urge all of you guys to check out horrorsci-fi.com, because that's where you can actually learn all about the International Horror and Sci-Fi Festival that the Phoenix Film Festival puts together. It's like a subsidiary under their umbrella, and allows the more left of center, the scarier, the weirder, whatever it may be, it allows that stuff to really get its time in the limelight. So.
Absolutely. So thanks again for watching, you guys. Stay tuned. We're going to hopefully be bringing more coverage like this to you in the future, especially when the International Sci-Fi and Horror Film Festival comes back around in April, I believe.
Exactly right.
So thanks again for watching, though. I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Susie von Slaughter.
Gracias. I've been Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.
Tomahawk. Tomahawk. Tomahawk.
Amateurs.
No, don't do it.
Okay. We're having
All right.